So this is a time lapse of me building a track I called Discombobulated. The track is currently on the Steam Workshop. If you want to check it out, I'll include a link to it in the description below. I haven't done a video style like this before. This is a little bit new. I'm just playing around with this. This track, the initial intention was to make this giant tower that you would be very condensed. The track could only be inside of the outlines of the tower, and then you would, go from level to level and further down. And I liked the idea. I thought it was really cool. As I started building it, I realized that this was taking a lot longer than I expected. My initial intention was far more ambitious than I thought it would be. And so I ended up dialing it back a bit. And what the ending result was is I ended up just conforming the track into a small box instead, which would have been the first level, so to speak. And building it was like, I think the total time took me about 6 to 8 hours in length, where there was a lot of different sections I had to go over and redo. But this track in particular, I wanted to play around with scenery a little bit more and build the scenery as I built the track. Typically what I've done in the past is I would build the track, then add the scenery, but I found this kind of like a little bit difficult to do because the first track I built, I ended up building the whole track, planning to add the scenery later, and then I had really no idea for how to add scenery, and it felt like the scenery was more of an afterthought than it was designed initially into the track. So I ended up experimenting with the idea of let's build the scenery at the same time rather than using it as an afterthought. One of the challenges was trying to figure out, how do I make the scenery work together with the track itself? Can I use it as a complement to the track so that when you are driving, it feels like a natural exploration of the world that's been built? And right now, Apex Rush doesn't have a whole lot of options for scenery. There's only a few pieces you can use, so you kind of have to get creative with what you're building, and it's kind of a very blocky style at the moment. And there is limited items in terms of like nature or in terms of structure. So I basically in this map decided just to throw nature out the window. I wasn't going to use pretty much any nature pieces and just work with the blocks themselves. I got this idea later on that, it'd be kind of cool to build this tunnel underneath this ice curve I had done, this ice slope, because then I was using this big blocky area and I could like reutilize this feature piece again and have the car go underneath, which I thought would be kind of a cool effect as you're driving through the track. Make it a little bit more fun to play. It ended up working out decently well. The tunnel took a lot longer to build than I expected. I had to do a lot of readjustments, trying to get the angles right. I had to play around with the rotation tool. This is one of the challenges about the game right now in its current state. This is the 1.0 version. It's difficult to get really smooth track pieces if you want to do like very customized turns. And there isn't really a tool to do that. The rotation tool is available, so it does give you the freedom and flexibility to at least make strange turns, but when you are connecting the track pieces together, you'll often get clipping and you'll get like a bumpy road as you're going through the track. So hopefully I hope we get to see that update in the future and a solution to that problem, but it's not like it's a game breaking feature. It would make things feel a lot more smooth, but it's not necessarily a necessity or the most important feature that could be added to the game right now. It's just something I hope we eventually see. There was a lot of adjustments going back and forth between certain jumps. Like I'll go over a jump quite a few times and then get the data for it and then realize, okay, I want to change this up. Trying to add like specific features that made the track challenging in some ways, but not too difficult. I'd made that mistake before. The first track I made was way too difficult. The jumps required frame perfect jumps, and it just wasn't fun when I played it. Some people might like that Dark Souls-esque challenge, but I didn't really enjoy that. And then when it came to like decorating, this was actually a lot more challenging than I thought it would be. Trying to get a decorative style that feels right takes quite a bit of time. It takes time to kind of know, like, how do I want this track to feel, both in terms of like playing it, but also when you're visually looking at it. And this has taught me a lot about like game design, like in terms of making a map. This isn't so much world design, so much as just like a level design, which isn't something I've done a whole lot of, but making this track, and unfortunately this time lapse doesn't cover all of the things I did. I actually ended up doing a few more additional add-ons later on. So I'll include at the end of this video just a playthrough of the track and what it looks like to play as like the car drives through it. Someone ended up beating my the time that I had intentionally set out. I didn't include enough checkpoints, which I learned later on is a little bit more important to include enough checkpoints so people don't completely shortcut your track, which happened like basically like the day after I posted it. Someone found a really fast checkpoint. Your players are a lot smarter than you expect them to be, and you should treat them as such. So they're going to look for ways to get the best time, which makes sense, right? Like if you're going to compete for a world record time, you want to try to get the best time on the track. Totally makes sense that you're going to be looking for that most optimal shortcut. So as a track editor or track builder, you have to think about that after you've built your track, or even while you're building it. How can I shortcut this? Can I shortcut this? And can I basically break the level by taking a route that the developer didn't intend, or the designer of the track didn't intend? I think that was actually a pretty cool lesson, like in terms of game development that I got to learn. I'm not a game developer. I would really like to be able to develop video games one day. It's not a skill I have, but being able to play around this editor is kind of a skill set that's pretty cool to be able to learn. I remember I used to play Roblox a lot, and I used to like building games in Roblox. I sucked at it. I never really built a finished game. And I think there's a certain point here where, like, even with a track, like after you've been working on it for a while, you just feel like, okay, I just want to publish it. Like I'm, even though it's imperfect, like I just want to finish it. And so that's kind of what this ended up being. I ended up just posting it, and you can play it now. It's functional. You can play it like the way it was intended to be played, or you can take the shortcut. You know, there's both options available to you. So this is the track finished. You can play it right now. It's on the Steam Workshop, and like I said, link is included in the description below if you want to try it out. So you come up this jump here. This is the ice obstacle. Once you finish this, you come down here and go up the loop. This is where I put the first checkpoint. Stick the wall, the landing, then come inside the tunnel. And this part's a little bit challenging here. I don't always land it. There is a way to get enough speed so you can just completely short circuit the that little lip at the end there. This is come up to the top feature above the ice. You can do a barrel roll to get down to this feature. I've included so many loops in this track, it's crazy. Come up this half pipe here, down to another loop, and then we're gonna hit a banked turn into a booster. I didn't quite love this part of the track I made. I didn't really like how it landed, but it was kind of like patchwork instead. Oops. The intention of just trying to like keep everything as tight and close together as possible kind of stuck throughout most of the track. It wasn't perfectly done. I did learn a lot about trying to make it a more dense track, and I like that style because it feels very fun, like because you get to see all the other like routes you're gonna go. And I feel like to a player that's kind of a cool feeling. Gosh, if I can only land that loop jump. So that was one part of the track here that I didn't like that I did, was this loop with the booster on it. It was kind of shoddy. It was getting towards the point where I was getting tired of making the track, and I'm like, okay, I just want to be done with this now. And I just started doing like kind of like a patchwork, not focusing so much on how does the rest of the track feel. I think that's one of the challenges is sometimes when you're too ambitious with your intention, you can get to a point where you don't really want to finish your projects. And then at that point, I just feel like slapping on a finish line and calling it a day, because the track is now exceeding my own desire to continue building it. I think that happens to me with a lot of projects in general. I don't finish so many projects because I get tired of that individual project and I want to move on to the next thing. Like I'll make an error that I know is messed up, and I like messed up from the start, and therefore starting a new project with that lesson I've just learned feels more useful than finishing the active project I have on the go at the moment. I'm really not landing this jump. So this is a really good example here of like where the track should have been made to be better. This double loop with the booster, it doesn't land right. Right here, this transition is okay. It's not perfect. You should have a bit more speed going in here. Working on flow is another tricky thing in track building, because you want the jump to be somewhat challenging, but at the same time you don't want it to feel like there's a lack of flow. You know, from what I've played this game so far, maintaining your speed feels so much better than like losing speed. Speed fluctuations are okay, as long as it's like you're not dipping too low. That's something you kind of have to spend a lot of time paying attention to, like how do I make this next piece feel good when you play it. Not always an easy thing to do. Not an easy thing to land that section either. Yeah, this is my 4th track, I think, 3rd or 4th that I've made. And so far I've probably spent, I gotta say, maybe like between 40 to 50 hours in the editor making tracks. Oh, finally. That was really sketchy. Not the best landing. Yeah, you come over here, there's a booster. It's gonna bring you around. This is basically the end of the track. There's a couple loops here. These loops, I liked how they landed. They were pretty smooth, but I didn't land them. Another thing is having more checkpoints does give you the option to finish the track faster. Sometimes a delay in the amount of checkpoints can make it feel like a bit more frustrating to complete the track for the user. Okay, here we go. Hopefully we can finish it this time. So yeah, booster here. It's already taking me like 6 minutes to finish this track. Okay. And there's the finish line. So that's what we basically added after the time lapse there. There was someone who learned how to do a shortcut on the track, and I haven't even tested doing the shortcut myself, but I'm pretty sure what they did here was they came over here and, oops, I don't know if I can do it. Yeah, they came over here, flew down, and landed on a piece that allowed them to shortcut like half of the intro sequence. So that was a useful lesson. I'm glad I learned it. It was a cut from this jump right here right onto this road, which allowed them to just drive up it and hit the first checkpoint instead of going down this loop onto the ice, then there. So they cut out like 10 seconds doing that. Yeah, those were kind of like the lessons I learned from this track. I'm hoping that I can continue to get better at track making if I keep going and keep doing it. It was fun. Yeah, there's actually a lot that goes into making a really good track that people want to play and enjoy. It's a lot more difficult than I ever thought it would be. It takes a lot of practice. The only reward you're getting is essentially people liking your track for all the time and effort and energies you sink in, because most tracks so far have taken between at least 6 to 10 hours to get to publishing, which is crazy because this does not look like a lot. It looks like it can be done pretty quickly. But yeah, it's a continual process of like paying attention to the lines, trying to make sure that the car lands nicely. You can even see here the car isn't really landing nicely. There's a big gap in between the lip and where the car is actually making contact with the track. And then here you can see like here's the error. Like the track is actually wanting to flow in this direction to the right. So that's really where the next piece should be going, is in that direction instead of upwards, because now you're kind of going like against the intuition of the player, which makes the track not as fun. So I've learned that as well. You kind of want to really pay attention to the flow, and these lines really make that so much more helpful for you for figuring out flow. This is another problem coming out of this turn here. You can see I'm coming out in a lot of different ways, and the car is spraying a little bit to the right here, or to the left. And so this piece should become a little bit more left than it is where it currently is standing. But yeah, sometimes you get ahead of yourself and you'll put a bunch of pieces down and then you don't really think about one jump. And each time the car leaves the air in this game, you have to really think about, on average, where is the user going to land most of the time? And making a smoother transition is almost always going to be rewarded with a more satisfactory feel. Here's another example. Having more data here would help, but you can already see, like, based on the speed coming out of this turn, this track, this loop piece right here is just a little bit too high. The car is making contact a little bit too late into the corner, not at a really smooth spot. However, down here, this one was a lot better, a little bit smoother. The contact point here is a little bit closer. That's not a great example, however, because this data isn't very good. I didn't do that section of the track very well when I was playing it, but these two jumps did end up working out a bit better. So yeah, that's what I've learned thus far from this track specifically. And if you're into track making, I plan to make a few more videos on like getting better at track making, or just covering some of the lessons I've learned so far. I'm going to try to do a little bit more of a polished video for that, so it's a bit more condensed down and you can just kind of flip through it really easily. But yeah, this is Discombobulated, so if you want to go check it out, links in the description below. Thanks for watching.